Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I see everyone starting to come in. So welcome, welcome. Go ahead and join us. Get comfortable. Maybe you're multitasking. We get it. We totally get it. We're glad you're here. I just want to say welcome to everyone for joining us today. Building stronger relationships, donor retention strategies that work. So go ahead, if you will, and please, in the chat, we are going to use the chat function today, as well as that Q&A. But in the chat, go ahead and tell us where you're joining us from. That could both be geographically as well as your organization. So thanks, Kara, for getting us started. Baltimore, Maryland. I hear it's cold there right now. I'm actually sitting in Arizona. So if I could send anyone with cold weather the sunshine, I would love to. Kara, yeah, I would put it in a bottle and send it if I could, I promise. So,
Well, Tampa, Florida
so
has a
welcome.
cold spell, and it's 77 degrees right now with a low of 63. So,
Oh, wow. Yeah. I
yeah,
was, who was I talking to yesterday? But I was in shorts and a tank top, and I actually got a midday hike in. I call it my hooky hike. So I usually do it
nice.
like during lunchtime, right? I'm like, I'm going to go play hooky and get some sunshine in. So, yeah.
Well worth it.
Well worth it. Yeah. Well, thanks everyone for chiming in. I'm going to get us started. I know we'll still have a few more people joining us, but I just want to say welcome to all of you. Today, we're going to explore how to use the cause selling approach to keep your year-end donors engaged beyond that giving season. So we're going to dive into best practices, actionable strategies to truly build meaningful donor relationships that ensure that long-time support for your mission. So again, thank you for joining us today. If you haven't checked out a movie, if you could just advance one slide, please check out Fundraising Academy, National University. We have fantastic tools, many of them for free. We will share a little bit later about their certificate program, but do check out because we have a portal, and I think we'll get that portal link on the chat as well. So many great tools, so many great resources. I always say if I had these tools and resources at my fingertips when I started my career 20 years ago, plus years ago, right?
When you
I
were
think
only
I
a 2-year-old baby.
absolutely, I would have been in much better career hands. But the good news is you have it now. I have it now. It's accessible. So please do check it out. So who am I? I'll share briefly about myself because it's not about me today. It's about Muhi, but I am Jarrett Ransom. I use she, her pronouns, also known as Nonprofit Nerd. And as I shared earlier, I am currently sitting in Phoenix, Arizona, but really thrilled to be a trainer here with Fundraising Academy at National University. And mostly excited for today to be able to introduce you to our amazing speaker, who I also am privileged to call a friend. So thank you to Muhi Kwaja. Shout out to all of these acronyms and letters behind your name. So MPA, CFRE, CFRM, and trainer at Fundraising Academy. So I'm going to read briefly so that I do his bio justice. But Muhi joins us today. He earned his bachelor's in history as well as psychology from the University of Michigan in 2009. And I can attest he is a true Michigan fan. So he didn't know what he wanted to do until the summer before he graduated there. And the development summer internship program that he was a part of at the University of Michigan sparked an interest in fundraising, i.e. development, as his career. So he worked with several nonprofit organizations. He also earned his master's in public administration in 2013 from University of Michigan, again, specializing in nonprofit management. He has over 15 years of nonprofit work as well as fundraising experience as a one-person development team, all the way to a chief development officer. In 2016, he earned his certified fundraising executive certificate. And in 2017, he earned a certificate of fundraising management from Indiana University's Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. That is a mouthful. And he is now adjunct faculties. Congrats to you on that, Muhi. I know that happened recently. And in 2024, so now I get to say last year, you earned your executive certificate in religious fundraising from, this is what I get to say the acronym, IULFSOP. That's the mouthful I said earlier, right? Indiana University Lilly Family School of Philanthropy. He currently serves as the co-founder of the American Muslim Community Foundation, where he helps families distribute more than $20 million since 2017. Congrats to you on that. And he serves as the only national nonprofit organization, or sorry, AMCF, American Muslim Community Foundation, serves as the only national nonprofit organization that is focused on creating donor-advised funds, giving circles, distributing grants, and building endowments for the American Muslim Community Foundation, our community, I should say. So again, this tells you Muhi brings a lot of expertise, phenomenal person. And with that, Muhi, I will pass it over to you, my friend.
Many thanks, Jarrett. I really appreciate the introduction. It's always weird being on the listening end, and typically I'm the one moderating, getting to embarrass people like you who also present. So thank you for sharing all of that information. Really, all to say, I'm one of you guys. You know, we're in this profession together as fundraisers to connect donors with causes that they care about. And we're going to be talking today more about why that's important. So we want to walk away today with a better understanding of what we can do around personalized relationships. This is everything from tailored communication and engagement strategies to resonate with individual donors. We're going to look at data-driven insights, which is all about leveraging donor data to identify trends, to predict retention risks, and personalize our outreach. We're going to also look at building trust and transparency, how we can deepen donor confidence through consistency of reporting and storytelling about the impact. We're going to look at what meaningful engagement can look like in different ways that we can involve our donors beyond just monetary contributions. We want to talk to them about how they can not only sustain and grow their passion for the cause. We often talk about linkage, involvement, and ability, but we want to also focus on involvement and how these donors can become advocates of our missions that we serve. And lastly, we're going to nerd out a little bit around retention metrics and goal setting. So what we can do to measure our success and set achievable goals for improvement, right? It shouldn't just be that we raised $3 million last year from philanthropy. Let's make it 5 million this year. No, it doesn't work that way, board. So you should be looking at the history of giving from 3 years, 5 years to come up with tangible goals for the next year. So why don't we jump in with a community share? Talk to us in the chat. Why did you join today's webinar? So we'll wait for a few of you to chime in and read them out to the group to get a sense of what we're all doing here today.
Yeah, let's use that chat. And also, I'll just jump in to use this opportunity to say both Muhi and I are very casual in style. So as we move forward, if there's any questions, go ahead and drop those in the chat as well. I'll be moderating those questions. I'll either save them for the end and or use them in real time if it's relevant, obviously, to the topic. So we've got a couple coming in now, Muhi, if you want to take a look at that chat and you can see some of those community shares.
Sure. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly, but Shauna says CFRE credits, keeping it real. Yeah, that's what we're here for, getting those education credits. Wonderful. Kara mentions Tough season ahead with so much tremendous need. Want to learn tips to ensure donors feel needed and part of solutions without feeling overwhelmed. Stephanie says to learn more about donor retention and ways to implement it at my job. Lorena mentions new to my director role and can use all tools to help me be impactful and strategic. Frank says, hello, will a recording of today's webinar be available after the meeting? Yes, absolutely, and always. And it will be in the learning portal, which you should sign up for to get access to it. So then new to my role and currently building out development for my org. Very exciting place to be, Misty. Nigel, my organization is over dependent on government grants. We want to build new streams. How relevant for the world that we're living in today. So yeah, trying to focus more on individual donors because we also understand that from the Giving USA data of $557 billion that Americans gave in 2023, that individuals give the most, right? So very important for us to be looking at all of those things. Want to move my mid-level donors to major gift donors, Ursula, great point. Rebecca, I'm building a new nonprofit and know how important donors will be to our success. Absolutely, building a pipeline is important. Lots of cheers and congrats to Alyssa and Misty for their new roles. Vanessa, with being in events, want to be able to learn more on retention this way and how we can ensure these donors come back. All right. I think that is great to get a better understanding of why you are here. And hopefully through the conversation, Jarrett and I can bring us back to these reasons of why you're here and how we can integrate all of these wonderful things into the conversation. So just as a primer, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the cause selling cycle, you know, there are many rapidly changing factors in the landscape of philanthropy and funding to nonprofits, as we mentioned. So to ensure long-term success, we want to build long-term, genuine relationships with our individual donors. And one of the most effective ways that we can achieve this is by incorporating Fundraising Academy's 8-step cause selling model into your strategic planning for sustainable growth. You know, I'm hopeful that your organizations have strategic plans and development plans and marketing plans. And even if you don't have a living document just yet, hopefully it's in process. And what you can do is integrate this cause selling cycle into that development plan. So cause selling is more than just fundraising. It's about, again, creating lasting connections with your supporters. And the first step is understanding your donors' motivations and values. And by getting to know what drives them to give, you can tailor your approach to resonate with them personally. It's not a one-stop shop, one size fits all. It should be catered to who your major gifts are. You should be creating in your portfolios specific cultivation and stewardship strategies based on the giving history of your donors or what type of things interest your donors if they are prospects getting ready to be donors. So the next is focusing on building ongoing engagement. And rather than only reaching out when you need donations, you want to be able to keep the conversation going. And this means that you should have regular communication, that there should be personalized thank yous, offers for one-on-one meetings, and engaging content that you share which helps strengthen the relationship and keeps the donors invested in your mission. As part of this, transparency is always key, and donors want to know that their contributions are making a difference. And by sharing clear, compelling reports about impact, you can build trust and keep supporters engaged in your cause. Along with this, telling your organization's story in a way that shows how their support directly aligns with your mission is crucial. Cause selling also emphasizes offering personalized ways for donors to give, whether through major gifts, planned gifts, or custom donation options, allowing supporters to contribute in ways that resonate with them. This will help build long-term commitment. And we want to be incorporating digital fundraising strategies. Some of you talked about events, whether they're in person or virtual, peer-to-peer campaigns, especially for board members or senior leadership on the staff, and other online tools that can expand your reach while keeping your existing donors engaged and providing new opportunities for prospects to come into the organization. All of this is going to take ongoing stewardship. And that will require ongoing follow-ups and public recognition, and really what the donor prefers in their way to be cultivated and stewarded. So it helps the donors feel appreciated and continue their support over time. So of course, with an institution and fundraisers on staff, sometimes staff retention can affect these things within the mission. Maybe a fundraiser only stays on for 18 months on average, or they're there longer and can build deeper, longer engagement with the institution as well. So whether it is one of these three phases focused on relationship building, engagement, or stewardship, you can incorporate these steps into your strategic planning, your marketing plans, your development plans to build a stronger nonprofit and institution that can focus on building longer lasting relationships with donors to ensure sustainable growth in 2025 and beyond. So phase one is really all the work necessary to prospect qualified potential donors. Phase two is that face-to-face time with the prospective donors. And phase three includes everything after the gift is given. So there are, definitions that we can provide for each and every one of these steps. So in terms of prospecting, this is where we find the prospect or donor. And in terms of the pre-approach, this is our methodology of getting as much information about the donor that we can. And in the approach, this is our way to make our first impression. And we know that first impressions can set the tone for the entirety of the relationship with the donor and the institutions that we represent. Need discovery is asking your donors about what their unique passions are, what they love to support, what are their top philanthropic interests. And once you learn those things, then you can craft a presentation to tell the story of impact of your mission and how their support makes a difference. And naturally, you will run into objections or questions that they need clarifying around certain things that you maybe talked about your programs and services and impact. And we really should look at objections as a way to getting closer to a yes. So looking at how we can overcome those potential roadblocks. And then when all of that dust is settled, you are ready to make an ask. And far too often, people jump to the ask before these other steps are done. And we really focus on this being a cycle and starting from the first, going all the way down to the last. So when the time is right to make the ask is the best time to make the ask, along with the best person to make the ask and the right program that should be asked for support, and the right amount, and asking the right person in the donor's family for the ask as well. So there's a lot of components in that ask. But then you get to follow up with results of how their gift has made an impact. And that's what stewardship is all about. So I'm going to pause there. We're going to launch a poll to see who is in the room, how many years of fundraising you have, and then we will jump into the rest of the conversation. And Shauna asks, question, if you have a relationship already, when should you approach with a second ask? Primarily, I would say after enough thanking, acknowledgement, enough stewardship of how your previous gift has made an impact. But Jarrett, I'd love to hear from you if you have any insights around that as well.
Yeah, great question, Shauna. So if you have a relationship already, when should you approach with a second ask? Well, remember I said earlier, I didn't have this model when I started my career, right? So, Shauna, mine's a little, I'm going to say it might be a little bit of a disruptive answer. But I do agree with everything Muhi said. Like, it really depends on the donor, the situation, the conversation. I use my intuition a lot, right? Like my gut, like what am I feeling based off of previous conversations and connections? The cause selling model definitely, if you work those phases, if you will, like there's no wrong time, I think, if you feel like it's the right time. And sometimes I feel like donors will really instigate the ask maybe earlier than what you're intending, based off of like a formal strategy. So sometimes the strategy is what you need to work. And sometimes even with the best laid formal strategy, you can go and say, you know what? I know this donor and I feel like they're ready. So let's approach this donor earlier, perhaps. So again, maybe a bit disruptive, but I also really lean into my intuition.
Yeah, and what I'll say is when I worked at the American Red Cross, it was very disaster centric. So wildfires were happening, or an earthquake hit another region of the world, or there was a hurricane that came through the, Gulf of America. Is that what they're calling it now? So, different reasons for reaching out to donors, and sometimes those were back to back. But again, there were in between those time frames stewardship reports that went out. So that it is a tight time frame, but again, intuition is totally key there. So,
Yeah. And I'll just elaborate, sorry, real quick, Muhi. Shada, I
yeah,
usually follow the ask, think, report, repeat. So you want to ask them and you definitely want to thank them and report to them what you've done before the next ask. So again, even with intuition, if you haven't done that yet, do that with that donor. So again, it's ask, think, report, repeat. And that's really, the fourth step in which I follow.
yeah, love that. Um, and we have another question from Kara about need discovery. If you feel like discussing it, when personalizing engagement, do you recommend that we have the donor experience the point of view of a client or beneficiary? Does it resonate more to cast them in the role of champion and hero? What feels more empowering or motivating to donate? What makes donors feel like they are in a relationship with an org? Does it depend on everyone's individual hope narrative? My quick answer is yes, it depends. But I would offer different narratives around impact. And you can even ask a donor which one of these resonates with you more. So having a conversation around their interest in learning about the impact. Do they want to be seen as, is a beneficiary experience? Maybe it's a video that's recorded, or you bring somebody along to the presentation to share more about the mission of how the organization made an impact in their life. So there are other, definitely depends, I would say, in regard to what the impact and how the donor will see the impact and inform their giving as well. Okay, so I guess we can share the poll out, and we see that there are 4 people with less than 1 year's experience, 8 with 1 to 3 years experience, 4 in the 4 to 7 years experience, and 6 with more than 10 years of experience. So great to better understand this as we continue these conversations. Excellent. So in terms of why engaging now, it's February. It's a few months after year end. Maybe you had a successful campaign, and it's really good to calculate what your retention rates were from 2023 to 2024, and looking at how many overall donors you had in 2024 will help you identify that retention rate by then looking at how many of those 2024 donors also gave in 2023. If it is a first-time donor to your nonprofit organization, they say that retention rates for first-time donors average 20%, but post-gift engagement can boost this significantly. So that's why we're talking about it now in February. So the national average for donor retention rates for nonprofits, typically around 40 to 45%. And again, that means 40% of your donors in 2024 likely gave in 2023. So donor retention is crucial to understand. It's the more cost-effective solution to retain existing donors than acquiring new donors. And acknowledgements should definitely happen within 48 hours of a gift coming in, but it's never too late to acknowledge if you haven't yet for 2024 donations. So acknowledging donors early in the process builds trust. It sets the stage for future giving, and you can't thank enough. You thank them from a personalized email. You thank them from a handwritten letter. You thank them from another staff member, maybe senior leadership or a board member, giving them thanks. And you connect their gift to specific outcomes and the positive impact that your organization has made. So again, demonstrating that their gift has made a difference. You can use success stories, beneficiaries that were mentioned, other infographics, photos, or videos. And this regular reporting habit will create more effective donor stewardship plans that you have. And if we ignore these engagement opportunities, that will result in donor attrition when donors fall off the giving map. So if we're able to create opportunities to invite donors in order to build trust through consistent communication and acknowledge their generosity, this will provide clear updates and make an invitation into recurring giving programs or the next opportunity to engage with the organization. Maybe it's a volunteer experience or coming to attend an event. And all of these will reinforce your organization as a top choice for their philanthropic priorities if your mission aligns with their giving mantra or their strategies of where they want to make an impact. So, maybe if there are any food banks in the audience, you can share the number of meals that were provided. Or if you're with an educational institution, the number of scholarships that were provided and awards that were given out. So if we're able to highlight how consistent support can amplify these efforts and touch more lives in the community, you have more opportunity to be successful with it as well. And I would say that it's essential to act quickly after the year-end rush to thank donors, because maybe their only time of giving is at the year end, right? So you may not hear from them for another 8 to 12 months, but the communication from your organization, thanking them, opportunities for engagement should all be there. And maybe if you are part of a faith-based organization, you have a community outreach program, and you can talk more about how that community outreach program has changed the local neighborhood and share stories of inspiration from there as well. And again, each piece of communication should be thoughtful, it should be engaged, and offer some sort of call to action that can deepen the connection to your cause. So I see some comments in the chat, so we'll pause to just kind of catch up with that. If they have
there's a couple of questions.
Yeah,
There's a couple of questions, Muhi, and I know we're moving into stewardship strategies. So let me share the questions, and then it gives you a little bit of time to think. Do you want to answer now, or might you answer it in the next slide? So Shauna wants to know if they have specific ways that the donor prefers to be updated. How do we ensure that we respect their boundaries, but also make them feel like a priority? And then the other question, I'm going to tag it on here. What is the first step to getting a previous donor back? So those are the two that previously came in.
Excellent. Yeah. I love these questions. And in terms of respecting boundaries and making them feel like a priority, I think these first few points go really well with that. So always personalizing it, Mr., Miss so and so, or if you have a first name basis, really showcasing that this message is tailored to them specifically. And if their boundary is that they don't want phone calls, or they only want email communication, or they don't want any direct mail sent, take me off the annual fund, but you can send me personalized appeals over the mail. Those are things to put into your CRM, make sure that other teammates are aware of it, remove them from any mass appeals, those types of things. And hopefully in those curated ways, you're establishing priority and exclusivity to make them feel like they are being respected with their wishes. In regard to the first step to getting a previous donor back, I would say, is looking at the data and making sure you know who your lapsed donors are. And then you can start from there. So many CRMs have a few clicks to a report that you can identify who were donors that gave in 2023 that did not give in 2024, right? So if you're very exclusive about establishing that report, and then coming up with a strategy of re-engagement. Um, Even something as simple as offering, we just wanted to hear from you as we noticed you didn't make a contribution last year. Did anything change with your philanthropic priorities? And of course, you can word it differently. And maybe that communication might go out as a mail merged email. So again, it's very specific to those donors. Or it could be given to, maybe they were in the major gift category, but lapsed. Do you put them back into the annual fund? Or do you still keep them in a major gift portfolio? So these are all things that you and your teams can identify. But winning back a previous donor, nothing gives me more joy. I don't know about you, but that's where the sauce is for me.
Yeah. Muhi, we have another question. They appreciate the messaging advice. The hard part is creating those messages. Any tips for how to craft an engaging message? So I responded back and said, personally, I'm leaning into AI to get me started, and really like provide some prompts for that, and then kind of massaging the messaging. That's a mouthful too, based off of, what AI provides. So I'm curious for you, Muhi, what tools do you use to create these messages?
Yeah, AI is only going to be as good as you build it or create it. So, on a first draft, it may not be where you want it to be. But I know even Blackbaud's Razor's Edge has AI acknowledgement tools where you can send a funny version, a serious version, or a lighthearted version, somewhere in between. So there are different tactics to AI that I definitely think it's a great starting point, and then can work from there. But you really, you need to feed it what your mission is, what your values are, what types of programs and services, so it better understands how to craft the message for you. Okay, so building meaningful relationships. So when it comes to effective stewardship strategies, we've talked about a few of these, but I'm going to go through it again. I can't emphasize enough how well a personalized thank you message, whether it is a phone call, an email, or even a handwritten note. I have two on my desk that I keep with me. These are just handwritten notes to me from other nonprofits that I've given to. And I just love reading them. I've kept them on my table because I appreciate them. And I know that I'm going to continue to give to these organizations because they have now established a personal relationship with me. And if you're able to, in addition to that, provide some sort of exclusivity, maybe it's a donor appreciation event, it could even be a virtual webinar. So it's nothing super costly, but very cost effective. You can offer engagement again with senior leadership, with the CEO, with another donor who maybe is of micro celebrity status, whoever's in your network, to try to engage them with the mission. So specific stewardship for donors at a certain level. Maybe they have to give $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 to be in that stewardship strategy, but it allows you to build those meaningful engagements. And when it comes to reporting, you want to be looking at specific donor impact reports with clear visuals, clear stories. Canva can do a lot, and people who may not have a formal marketing background can do some level of work. But if you do have a dedicated professional marketing staff member, really great to get their feedback in creating these impact reports. Maybe you're working on a 2024 annual report right now. and you want to get that out the door in the next month to showcase what the impact was last year. So these opportunities for reporting are prime in this time frame as well. If you're able to provide a tour, I think that's a big way to integrate into the mission, and offering behind the scenes tours or even virtual visits. Maybe have a marketing team or a summer intern or somebody with a camera these days can do a lot of video recording and easy editing for social media or for donor stewardship. So offering these unique ways to get more information at the fingertips of your donors. And then you want to be able to recognize donors, with permission, of course. If it's something that they value, they will let you know. So maybe regularly doing a monthly donor spotlight on social media or in your email newsletter. And again, this is where strategic plans and marketing and communication plans and development plans all align and weave together. So if you're able to coordinate the messaging and come up with a weekly post or engagement or monthly post, that will be helpful. I know even at Fundraising Academy, our marketing department supports our team, and we have to get things to them 6 weeks in advance of scheduling. So again, it's thinking about the next 2 to 3 months for the rest of the year engagement and building these opportunities to coordinate within your teams of how to do these steps. So another area of engagement could be a milestone. So if you know your donors' birthdays, if you get to really know your donors and you know about their personal life and their own anniversaries, or maybe the birthday of a child, and even if you want to do the donor anniversary of their first gift, similar things like that will go a long way in making that connection. So a few examples, if there are any animal shelters up there, you can obviously do a really thoughtful or unique video of a rescued pet thriving in their new home, right? Or if you are a healthcare nonprofit, getting a facility tour of newly renovated clinic that was funded with new equipment by donors' generosity, right? Or if you're a faith-based organization, maybe hosting interfaith appreciation luncheon to connect donors and the community with program beneficiaries. So what we need to remember here is that stewardship is really about showing genuine gratitude and keeping donors informed about their impact. I'm sure all of you on this call are donors to other organizations. We're in this profession. It's often harder for us to say no when people ask us for gifts, right? And even if it's just $50 or if it's $5,000, we want to be thought of as in a specialized way, and we want to be thanked for that donation that we make in a specialized way as well. So I often like to say, think of yourself as the donor, put yourself in their shoes. How would you want to be cultivated and stewarded? And again, each donor is going to have their preferences of how often you reach out, what opportunities you engage them with, and you're never going to know unless you ask them. And I think that's a big part around portfolio management. If you are a fundraiser on a team with a portfolio of donors, you should know as much about those specific donors. And all of those notes should be in the CRM about their pros, cons, dislikes, likes, their giving persona, who they are, the ethos of them as a person and their personality. You should be getting to know your donors personally beyond professionally, to really get at the core of what they care about. So again, if it's about being able to meet scholarship recipients, and that really personalizes the connection to their giving because they were able to meet somebody who's impacted directly by a gift to the scholarship, that's a great way to steward them. Any insights you want to share, Jarrett?
I was just thinking, Muhi, I've received a couple of Valentine's cards. So here we are, well, today's the 19th of February, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
received a couple of note cards and postcards from organizations that I either attended an event and made, I'm going to say a nominal gift, and or other organizations where maybe I've given a little larger, right, than at the event. So I'm starting to notice how people are and organizations are starting to leverage different holidays, right? Besides that giving season holiday, which I always think is Thanksgiving and Christmas, right? Like those kind of like holidays, I feel are the ones that really get the push. But I'm really starting to appreciate and notice the off, I'm going to say the high season giving times
Yeah,
and leveraging those opportunities.
absolutely. And, I would even go a step further looking at things like Black History Month, Women's History Month,
Yeah.
Black Philanthropy Month, all of these other months or causes aligned opportunities for creating awareness, right? So you can really look at the calendar as a way to see what ones align directly with your mission, or maybe something cutesy like Valentine's Day that everybody can lean into, but just as a step of appreciation. So I love that idea.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So we're going to focus a little bit about how we can craft those compelling messages. And again, AI, hate it, love it, use it, don't. We don't want them taking over in the next decade. But are there ways to be more smart about our work? And maybe you are just bootstrapped. You're a one-person development team. There's no marketing support at all. Yeah, I would be using AI if I was in that situation. So, really, what we want to do here is focus on storytelling, share real life, impactful stories, how your mission is integrated into the community. And think of the question, if your organization did not exist, how would the world look differently? And often by answering that question, you can think of the impact that your organization creates. So if you're able to create consistent but not overwhelming communication, I think you'll find a good cadence. Maybe it's not a weekly email. Maybe it is not uh a monthly letter that goes out, but somewhere in between, right? Maybe every 3 to 6 weeks there's a touch point that you've created that is a opportunity for engagement. It's keeping you as the fundraiser and the organization as the opportunity top of mind for the donor, right? And you can use varied formats. It doesn't always have to be email. It can be a simple invitation to follow your social media platforms for the nonprofit organization. Maybe there's a podcast that your organization has, and it's sharing the most recent episode over uh, email. Or it could be a direct mail piece that goes out. So for American Muslim Community Foundation, we have donor advised funds. So right now, a lot of families are preparing their taxes, right? So we are sending out a postcard that literally says, hate collecting those tax receipts, use a donor advised fund. So something that is, again, different, off the cuff. It is relatable. And we're hoping to open another 25 DAFs from this one mailer that we've sent to 1,000 people. So even a low level of engagement, maybe we should be striving for more, but we only send postcards maybe once or twice a year, and we don't do a direct mail campaign. This is like the few times that we reach out to a segmented list of donors. So in that, we're going to track the QR code. We're going to track the number of visits to the site. We're going to track how many people open DAFs. And hopefully, right around the corner for Muslims is Ramadan, starting at the end of this month and the end of February. So a lot of Muslim families will be giving a majority of their charitable giving in the month of Ramadan. So if you have Muslim donors, Ramadan is a great opportunity to reach out to them. And specifically, the last 10 nights of Ramadan is when a majority of Muslims give their what they call zakat or tithing in Islam. So talking about segmentation is, again, knowing about your donors. You can chop up things by zip code. You can chop up things by where what programs they've given to, if they've given restricted gifts versus unrestricted gifts. Another segmentation, you can try to go based on gender. You can try to go based on their profession. So if these different things and different things that may interest them, there's a lot of different ways you can pull that information from your CRM if you're putting these types of details into the CRM and can pull reports based on that data. So we talked about storytelling, consistency, variety. Visuals is definitely something that is important. Again, some people may be qualitative, other people will be quantitative in how they want to absorb the information. So you need to be creating a sense of transparency by sharing how the funds were used in a qualitative manner, in a quantitative manner. And you can highlight those opportunities for donors to get more involved beyond giving. The call to action is to volunteer, is to visit our facility, is to X, Y, and Z. So the more specific you can be with your call to action, the stronger the response will be as well. So an example of this, again, could be a nonprofit sending out a heartfelt email that highlights how donations helped build a new community center. Or again, with an education nonprofit, a video of students thanking the donors for their support. Again, those animal rescues, it almost seems like it's like so easy for these types of organizations, right? But they still struggle in building these connections with donors as well. And again, infographic, year over year adoption success rates made possible by donors. So what we need to look at in crafting compelling messaging and communication is think through what will keep your donors emotionally connected to your mission. And it's not just about asking for money. It's about creating an ongoing dialogue, and dialogues are two-way streets. So you should be doing a lot of listening and finding out where donors see themselves as partners in your impact. So again, would love to focus on how you are hearing from your donors and what you are hearing from your donors to allow you to craft better messaging to your donors. So I know that's a bit of a catch-22 because you don't know until you ask, but I think that's part of the equation here is asking your donors how they prefer to be communicated so that you can then craft those messages. I see a question from Ursula as well. How important is it to recognize these specific donor cultural differences? I think it depends on the donor's identity and how much emphasis in their personal life they put towards that identity. Jarrett mentioned I am a graduate of the University of Michigan. I love anything and everything University of Michigan. I got my class ring on, right? So for me, that's a big part of my identity. I was born and raised in Michigan. All four of my siblings and we graduated from the University of Michigan. So I love going to a football game a year now that I don't live in Michigan, but coming back to the university to get that experience. So whether it's a cultural difference or just an identity piece that a donor wears, it's again better understanding that to create these specific opportunities for engagement.
Muhi, I was going to ask a question. I understand, really learning about the donors' preferences when we meet with them one-on-one, get to know them. Have you done this in a survey, like an annual survey? I know so many organizations have done those, and I'm curious if you can speak from your personal experience of getting some of these donor communication best practices or getting some of those preferences or some even identification markers, right, from our donors via a survey. Could you speak to that point?
Whether you're using Google Forms, Jotform, whatever form your CRM can handle and integrate, I'm a fan of surveys. I think that they provide a lot of insight and value. I am part of a cohort of philanthropic advisors. So Daylight Advisors has a program for philanthropic advisors, and they talk about really getting to know who your donors are, right? And as a philanthropic advisor, I'm learning about their passions around what problems in the world they want to solve, what resources they can put behind solving that problem, how they want to engage their children in philanthropy, and a whole host of other things. So there are a lot of exploratory questions that you can be asking in a first meeting with the donor face to face or through a survey to get a general sense of communication methods, maybe some of these deeper philosophical questions as well. But I think nothing beats face-to-face interaction when it comes to getting to know your donors. But the survey tools that are out there can definitely help inform how you build that connection.
Great. And we have a thank you for answering that. We have another one that came in via Q&A wanting to know, do you send out the survey to donors after their first gift, or is this done through only conversation?
Yeah. And I think it's really up to you to determine what that process looks like at your organization. So, again, part of the strategic planning, marketing and communications planning, donor development planning, that stewardship piece of the pie, you get to determine when we get a first time donor, what does their donor experience look like? Okay. Within 48 hours, they get a personalized thank you. Within 1 week, they get a impact report. Within 1 month, they get a survey asking them for engagement, right? There can be these trickles that are given to the donor experience. And you can start off the entire organization with a one-off, and then going forward, this is the level of integration that we will provide.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
And I guess
And
that's
perfect segue to the
right.
journey mapping.
Look at how that happened. So again, what are those key touch points for donor communication? And you want to identify the moments for stewardship, for updates, and when an additional ask might be appropriate. Don't go right out for another ask within 3 months. You want to give it a cooling period. Maybe after 6 months, it's a better time to approach again. And of course, whatever falls in your fiscal year, depending on when that is, that could also determine when you reach out again for an additional gift. But alignment is really about the donor's journey. It's about looking at different events, different campaigns that you can align the donor with and create those mission moments and touch points. So I almost like to think of it like a playground, right? If you have the swing set over there, you have the one that spins around on the other side, you have the monkey bars. Not everything is going to appeal to the donor. See which playground toys, which playground equipment they like using throughout the year, and stick to what works. So again, if you can align that donor journey, and maybe the playground is also a reference to your programs and services that you offer, right? So looking at all of that, again, the feedback is where the survey comes in brilliantly, right? So to make your donors feel heard, feel valued, at American Muslim Community Foundation, leading up to Ramadan, we just launched a survey last week asking them, what are your top philanthropic priorities and what charities are you giving to in Ramadan, right? Obviously, they're going to log into their DAF portal. They're going to submit their charitable distributions when they want to. But ahead of time, we're trying to better understand what causes they're giving to, because we're going to turn around and talk to those nonprofits saying, hey, we are going to be sending you funds cumulatively from our 200 DAFs. You're getting $25,000. Let's use that as a matching campaign to help you get more donations from the rest of your donor community outside of AMCF. Another thing from the survey is, how can those donors integrate better into other offerings from AMCF, right? We have giving circles that they can join. We have collaborative funds that they can join. But we really haven't cross-collaborated within our departments of programs and services to our donor base, right? So better understanding, okay, this DAF family has a high school student. We're launching a next gen giving circle, and we want to have their child participate in that giving circle, right? So that way it's supporting these intergenerational conversations. We know that there's going to be $85 trillion of wealth transferred from one generation to the next by 2050, right? How can we be more impactful with these things? So we want to be able to plan these surprises or elements as well. So engage, maybe a family hasn't thought about how they want to engage their kids in philanthropy. They don't have the tools around it, but we're providing them with that experience of how to navigate those conversations. And, you can always use your donor preferences to guide the communication, to guide the timing, and to guide the content of what is shared with them, how often it's shared with them. So again, maybe you're at a hospital foundation and you want to send a quarterly newsletter on how their work has progressed, or another institution might focus on how volunteers have made a difference and do a volunteer highlight to showcase that donors can also be volunteers. And more importantly, that volunteers can also be donors, right? So, maybe if you're part of a religious nonprofit, you could invite donors to a prayer service if that's their cup of tea. And you can highlight the success of funded programs. So, what I would like you to think through is, again, what is that donor journey? What is that map that you are laying out there? And that you create a structured plan of engagement to nurture these relationships throughout the year. Literally putting a calendar and saying, okay, this month the outreach is going to be this method, and I need the support of marketing to come up with it. So if we're going to be sending it in May, that means the design needs to be finalized April 1st so it can go to the printer and we have it back by April 29th, and then can mail it out the last week of April, right? So all of these timelines need to be set out there in order to plan your year-round engagement. So now we get to nerd out a little bit, right? The big question a lot of times is, what CRM system do you use? Um, you know, my honest opinion is that every CRM is going to have its issues. Find the one with the least issues for what you need it to accomplish. So whether, we can list 10 different CRMs, they're all going to have their challenges, right? Are some better than others for user experience, for back-end connection to accounting, for event registration, for importing data from a crowdfunding into your CRM? There are probably some that are easier to use than others, but it's not necessarily to say like, go with this platform or go with this system. Look for what your organization needs, whether it needs to be segmenting donors by giving history, by interest, by demographics, whether you're very event heavy, very crowdfunding heavy, how to get that data easily into your CRM. Come up with a rating of like, we really need a CRM that is stellar at events. We really need a CRM that is stellar at crowdfunding integration. But maybe you just decide we're not going to go with one system, but we have multiple systems and we need to learn how they communicate together, right? So again, that might be something for you to bring to your senior leadership team to say, our current systems don't allow us to do X, Y, and Z, and we need to be able to understand X, Y, and Z so that we can communicate more effectively and efficiently with our donors. So if you're able to use a CRM to track those donor interactions, our platform that we use at AMCF, I'm not going to name which one, but it has a feature that it embeds with our email, where with a few clicks, if I'm sending an email to a donor within my email platform, I can just simply click and it adds it to the donor's profile. Huge win, right? Do I do that as often as I should? No, but the feature exists, okay? So I need to be better at implementing it myself, but it allows me to more easily get the information into the database. So we use that information to better inform ourselves around what the history of engagement has been. And of course, like creating portfolios and other people on the team My giving circle manager is in charge of all the people who are part of a giving circle. My director of philanthropic services is in charge of everybody who has a donor advised fund. But a lot of those DAF relationships, since I'm the co-founder, are personal relationships. So we're both co-managing those portfolios. So you want to be able to have that capability. And tailoring campaigns to specific donor segments for maximum impact. So what I mean by that is looking at these 1,200 postcards that I'm sending out.
With the integrations and there's a lot of opportunity. I was sharing with tech stack, right? Like there's huge advancement in our technology today. And going back to 20 plus years when I started, the data and the data engagement, like it is night and day. And so what we're able to have now is the opportunity to lean in, as Muhi said, to that CRM and look to see where there's some tech stacking, integration, synchronization, opportunities to really support you. I love, there's one particular database I get to use quite a bit with my client work, Muhi, and I love the BCC email function because I'm able to send an email. I will add a BCC specific email, and then that email that I just sent to the donor also gets copied into their into the constituency, profile, which now we're talking about institutional knowledge that will remain with that organization well beyond my years and well beyond my contract.
So helpful. And yeah, as a consultant, right, you're not maybe there long term, but at least that information gets into the system for the next person who's there.
Absolutely. Quick question
quick
here,
things
and I know we've got about 17 minutes remaining. How would you recommend transitioning from a membership-based giving model to a general annual giving approach? We want to ensure that our donors continue to feel valued and appreciated, even as we move away from the membership structure. Great question.
Yeah, that's a great question, Stephanie. And better understanding what type of institution you are can help kind of craft a more articulate response. But I think in general, I don't see much difference from switching your model from a membership based to an annual based, because they're still going to be giving. And it may just be the nuances of how they are stewarded or how they are cultivated that would be different. So in terms of still providing value and appreciation, I think being clear that with a sustained annual gift, you will be receiving X, Y, and Z. So for a community foundation, I think it's really showcasing your programs, services, grant making that you do, and telling the story of the recipients that you have. So I think those would be the ways in which I would go around it. And I have a few more slides that I want to make sure that I at least briefly get through so that we get through the content. And apologies if there was some audio issues on my end. Okay, we'll keep track of the questions that are coming in. But, in terms of the year-end donors and how you can get them into lifelong supporters, really it's, looking at what ways can you increase retention. You want to be looking through those 8 steps and 3 phases of the cause selling cycle. You want to look at how personalization through follow-ups or segmented campaigns can make an impact. So it's about tracking the impact as well, right? So like this postcard, we got a QR code. That's going to be our metric going forward. We've never tracked these things as an institution. We've been, you know, flying by the seat of our pants, making it happen, making it work as we go along. We're very grassroots in that sense, but we just hired a director of marketing and communications, and they're like, you should be tracking this. So we're going to be tracking it. Right. And by looking at that data, we will be able to create more impact. This segmented list of 1,200 donors are people that we've wealth screened. Our database has like 16,000 households in the United States, but around 2,000 of them are wealth screened with a rating of 3 to 5, right? So that's the segment that we're focused on, trying to get them to open up donor advised funds. So a very tangible, specific example of why we sent this postcard to that segment of donors. And again, when we're communicating with our donors, we want to include quantitative results like increases in donor retention or revenue. We want to be looking at qualitative feedback from donors about their positive experiences. Why have they continued to give? We want to emphasize the role of stewardship in achieving sustainable results as well. So in terms of, what we can do to better steward our donors is continuously adapt and work with what worked in order to come up with how we inform our strategies. So I don't think we were too off on time, but I know that we were cutting close because we were also taking in questions as we went along the way. So I know questions will continue to come through the Q&A or through the chat. So were there any additional questions, Jarrett?
There was one that I answered, Lorena. And I could get on a soapbox on this one. So receiving recommendations from their board to develop a giving club, and their board suggests giving swag for different levels. Any thoughts? I have a lot of thoughts about that. I answered in the chat that really people give not to get swag, right? So really, like, I encourage you to move your board away from that and focus on the relationship giving. Giving clubs are very common. And in fact, that might be like your major gift level. I have one client that their major gift amount is $1,000. So that is cumulative over a 12-month period. I have other clients where their major gift is 5,000, and I have even others that are like 25,000, right? So a major gift level is set by the organization itself. But Lorena, I really want you to work with your board on focusing on relationship giving, share the cause selling model with them, share the portal with them. So many great insights there to focus on relationships. And when it comes to the giving club and kind of swag, what I would focus on is more what might they have access to, right? That's not, let's give them a tchotchke or a trinket or something that's going to cost us money, but maybe they're invited to a VIP reception before your gala, if that's something you do. Maybe they're invited to a biannual CEO coffee discussion, and that could be virtual, that could be in person. But I really encourage you to think of like, what are some access points that these, giving club members could have access to, as opposed to let's now purchase items, which is taking away from our bottom line. That's my soapbox, Muhi. Anything to add on that one?
Yeah, and I think, even showcasing how maybe tchotchkes or swag are underwritten by a corporate sponsor or something like that. So it's not, money taken away from programs and services. But a few that I have accumulated and they're just sitting on my desk. One is like a car magnet holder for a cell phone, another was just a regular pen, signing up for an email list at a conference. You know, this one's very outdated, but the fundraising school had given out USBs with the content of their stuff on it, and then little mint. And then one that AMCF has, which you have, Jarrett, is a chapstick. So, you know, unique things that can be given out. Hey, there you go.
Here it is.
So yeah, different ways in which you can try to, whether you give it out for marketing purposes or specifically to donors, you can determine those things.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And Rebecca, you had a question. I think I answered it in the chat, but the question was really around, can you explain membership-based giving? And so my explanation to you and for others that might have the same great question is there are a lot of nonprofits. And we all have the 501c in common, and the next number is different based off of how you are identified and structured with the IRS. So when you think of something like a Chamber of Commerce, that is typically a membership base, typically a 501c6 as opposed to a 501c3. And so there's a lot of revenue that typically comes from membership as opposed to individual giving. And so the previous question we got was really, how do you switch from membership to individual? And who was that? It was a fantastic question. Oh, Stephanie. So Stephanie, ironically, I just helped a client do that here in Arizona. They're a consortium, and they were membership based, and then they just switched to individual. So I worked with them to really, well, one, start from scratch with a donor database, as well as those integrations, what Muhi was saying, as well as segmentations, and to help figure out, you know, who are these individuals that make up our membership and how might we get them to become donors for a true altruistic support the mission and the efforts and who we are and what we do, as opposed to purchase membership so that you have access, right? So really looking at it that way. You're welcome. So, all right, Muhi. That's it for the questions, my friend.
Yeah, let's, you know, we can move on to closing out. But again, you want to make sure that you are reviewing your year-end data, that you at least make a stewardship calendar for the next 6 months, and that you schedule an internal and external meeting to align on how you can integrate what you learned today. You want to be able to set, of course, smart, you know, goals for donor retention and engagement. This could be part of your strategic plan, your development plan, your marketing plan, and continue to invest in your team. Come to these free resources, to our very affordable paid workshops, or other ways to integrate into Fundraising Academy. So once you're able to put all of these strategies into action, you'll be able to start small, keep track of your progress, refine your approach, and continue to just repeat and reuse. So that is really what we wanted to share. And, you know, test new strategies, be bold, do something different, see if it lands, and see how the response is from the donors. And collaborate. Absolutely. So you can find Jarrett and myself on LinkedIn. You can also find Fundraising Academy on LinkedIn. Definitely add us. Let us know that you were here at the webinar when you add us. The other QR code is to join the cause selling email list for Fundraising Academy. And I will pass it back to Jarrett to close out.
Thanks, Muhi. I'm always fascinated with the examples and insight that you share with us. So thank you so very much. Definitely do connect with us. Fundraising Academy does monthly webinars just like this one. So each and every month, there's a different presenter, different moderator, although you might see the two of us back again as a dynamic duo at some point this year, but please do connect with us. And then thank you for having the Fundraising Essential Certificate. This is up, and if you're on our email list, you probably got the email yesterday that announced the purchase of the introductory course. If you make that purchase within 30 days, you also receive $365 off the full fundraising essential certificate. So that is a fantastic offer. We know that we share so many tools and resources for free. So make sure you take advantage of those. And if you want to up your game, definitely take a look at this certificate. We want to remind you that this is a new certificate program. So again, it has 125 hours flexible modular certificate that can help you, all of our busy fundraisers, meet your professional development goals. So they are available for you individually or in bulk at a reduced rate for your fundraising teams. There will be a link in the chat, so we will get that in for you as well. And then the next slide, I want to give a shout out to that learning portal that we keep mentioning. Go ahead and scan that QR code. This is a phenomenal tool. Again, free resource for you, for your board. Share it far and wide, truly, because there is a lot of insight in there, including previous recorded webinars, previous recording articles. Like, there's just so much in there. I go into the portal every single week, and I feel like I'm still finding new Easter eggs, right? There's still something that I haven't seen before. And again, as I mentioned, the webinars, I want to give a shout out to our March webinar. This is coming up, and that title is, sorry, it's a little dark here, from persons, wait, what is it? Persons to partnerships,
Personas.
I think. Thank you. Personas to partnerships. So make sure you check that out, register for that as well, scan that QR code, and we would love to see you again, even if you're coming to get those CFRE credits. Maybe you came for that, but you stayed for something else. So again, really glad to have you. But next month's webinar is going to be about how to create donor personas based upon what you already know about your donors, help to identify some common donor personas that might already present in your database, ways you can discover strategies to create targeted communications for cultivation, solicitation, stewardship, which Muhi talked a lot about, that align with those personas, and also understand how to evaluate. We talk about data. Data is sexy. So let's talk about how to evaluate and refine your interactions with your personas. So we fit a lot in, and we are still within our allotted time. Make sure you check that chat box, because there's quite a bit of links in there for you as well. Anyone that signed up for this, you will get the recording. So you will have access to this infinity and beyond. That's it for me. I want to say thank you. Go ahead, Muhi.
I'm just going to say, normally I'm a moderator or a facilitator in these. Next month, I'm going to be an attendee because Jack Alato is just that fantastic. He's been a presenter for us before, but he's just, he's a guru and just somebody that I admire and my mentor. So I will be in the audience next month.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for that. And I believe you might see me as the moderator again. So I'll be serving in that role with Jack. So thank you for joining us. Thanks for being here. Share these tools and resources with your friends and your peers, and go ahead and register for March. We'd love to see you again. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Keep up the
Take
great
care.
work.
Thanks for the opportunity. Bye-bye.